The Galactic Academy of Advanced Sciences buzzed with its usual morning chaos. Students from dozens of species hurried through the crystalline corridors, their various appendages clutching data tablets and neural interfaces. The massive station orbited the neutral world of Kepler 442b, serving as the premier educational institution for the galaxy's brightest young minds. Maya Chen walked through the entrance hall with quiet confidence, her simple human clothing stark against the elaborate biosuits and environmental gear worn by her alien classmates. At 17, she looked unremarkable compared to the towering Altarians with their 6 arms or the crystalline vegan students whose bodies reflected light in prismatic patterns. Her black hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and her dark eyes took in everything around her with careful observation. The registration desk was staffed by a bored-looking Centaurian whose blue-scaled head barely lifted as Maya approached. "Name and species," the being droned in universal translation. "Maya Chen, human from Earth," she replied. The Centaurian's head snapped up, multiple eyes focusing on her with sudden interest. "Human? We haven't had one of those in, well, ever." The being's claws tapped against the holographic interface. "Your entrance scores are adequate. Barely. You're assigned to advanced theoretical physics with Professor Zektar." Maya nodded politely, ignoring the dismissive tone. She had grown accustomed to such reactions during her journey here. Humans were newcomers to the galactic community, having only achieved faster-than-light travel 15 years ago. Most species regarded them as primitive upstarts, barely worthy of notice. The lecture hall was enormous, designed to accommodate the diverse physical requirements of dozens of species. Maya found a seat in the back, her human-sized frame dwarfed by the massive Ursine students nearby. Professor Zektar entered with a flourish of his 8 tentacles, each one manipulating different holographic displays as he began his lecture on quantum fold dynamics. "Today we discuss the theoretical limits of space-time manipulation," the professor announced, his translated voice carrying across the hall. "The mathematics involved are beyond most primitive species, but I shall attempt to simplify for our diverse student body." A few students chuckled, and Maya felt eyes turning toward her. She remained focused on her tablet, taking notes with steady concentration. The equations Professor Zektar presented were indeed complex, involving 11-dimensional calculations that made most students' heads hurt. Maya followed along easily, her stylus moving across the screen in fluid strokes. During the break, she overheard a group of Altarian students discussing the material. "Those fold equations are impossible," one complained. "It's 4 vocal cords creating a harmonious whine. Even our enhanced neural processors can't handle the computational load." "Speak for yourself," bragged a vegan student, its crystalline form shimmering with superiority. "My people have been working with 11-dimensional mathematics for 3,000 years. It's merely a matter of proper mental discipline." Maya continued working on her tablet, cross-referencing the fold equations with some theoretical work she had read during her journey to the academy. Something about the professor's formulation seemed incomplete, as if he was missing a crucial variable that would make the calculations far more elegant. When class resumed, Professor Zektar posed a challenge to the students. "I want you to calculate the energy requirements for a fold space jump across 50 light-years. The being who provides the most accurate answer will receive priority placement in the advanced research program." The hall filled with the hum of mental processors and the clicking of calculation devices. The vegan student's crystal body pulsed with intense light as it worked through the problem. The Altarians conferred among themselves, their 6 arms moving in complex patterns as they manipulated holographic equations. Maya worked quietly, her stylus moving steadily across the tablet screen. She noticed that most students were using the standard Heisenberg-Kramnik formula, but something about it felt wrong to her. Instead, she began working with a modified approach, incorporating some concepts from human chaos theory that she had studied back on Earth. After 30 minutes, Professor Zektar called for answers. The vegan student proudly announced its result first: 4.7 times 10 to the 23rd power energy units, calculated using traditional 11-dimensional fold mathematics. The professor nodded approvingly. "Excellent work, student Krystal." "Anyone else?" Several other students offered their calculations, all clustering around the same general range. Professor Zektar seemed pleased with the uniformity of the answers, which confirmed the standard theoretical models. Then Maya raised her hand. Professor Zektar's tentacles paused their constant motion. Yes, the human student. I calculated 2.3 times 10 to the 22nd power energy units, Maya said quietly. A ripple of laughter went through the hall. The vegan student's crystal form flashed with amusement. The primitive clearly doesn't understand the mathematics involved, it said dismissively. Professor Zektar's expression was patient but condescending. I appreciate your effort, Student Chen, but your calculation is off by more than an order of magnitude. Perhaps you should review the basic principles before attempting such advanced problems. Maya nodded politely but didn't argue. She had double-checked her work and she was confident in her answer. More importantly, she had noticed something else in the equations, something that made her very curious about what would happen when the first victims began to fall. As the class ended and students filed out, Maya remained seated, reviewing her calculations one more time. She was certain she was right, but she also understood that proving it would require more than just mathematics. She would need to wait for the right opportunity, and she suspected that opportunity was coming sooner than anyone expected. The other students barely glanced at her as they passed, already dismissing the human girl who couldn't even solve a basic fold-space equation correctly. They had no idea that Maya Chen was about to change everything they thought they knew about physics, about humans, and about the very nature of reality itself. 3 days passed before the first incident occurred. Maya had settled into a routine of attending lectures, studying in the vast digital library, and eating alone in the cafeteria while other students gathered in their species-specific social groups. She didn't mind the isolation. It gave her time to observe and think. The Academy's artificial gravity system had been acting strangely for weeks, according to the maintenance reports she accessed through the student network. Minor fluctuations that the engineering staff attributed to normal wear on the aging gravitonic matrices. Maya had read through the technical specifications with growing concern, recognizing patterns that others seemed to miss. She was in advanced quantum mechanics when it happened. Professor Veltan, a distinguished Arcturian with silver-scaled skin and compound eyes, was demonstrating gravitational wave manipulation using a small-scale gravity well generator. The device created localized distortions in space-time, allowing students to observe how matter behaved under extreme gravitational stress. Notice how the quantum particles maintain coherence even under 12 times standard gravity, Professor Veltan explained, her forearms adjusting various controls with practiced precision. The key is maintaining proper resonance frequency with the local space-time matrix. Maya watched the demonstration with growing unease. The frequency readings on her tablet showed harmonic oscillations that were building toward a dangerous resonance cascade. She had seen similar patterns in her theoretical calculations, warning signs that the standard safety protocols didn't account for. Student Krystal, the arrogant vegan from her physics class, leaned forward eagerly. Professor, what would happen if we increased the gravitational field to 20 times standard? Surely your species has experimented with such extremes. Professor Veltan's compound eyes glittered with academic pride. An excellent question. The theoretical limit is approximately 25 times standard gravity before quantum decoherence occurs. Observe. Her forearms moved quickly across the controls, increasing the power output. The gravity well generator hummed louder, and the space around it began to shimmer with visible distortion. The demonstration particles swirled faster, their movements becoming increasingly chaotic. Maya's tablet showed the frequency readings spiking toward critical levels. She glanced around the classroom, but none of the other students seemed to notice anything wrong. Their instruments were calibrated to detect known danger signs, not the subtle harmonic patterns that Maya's modified sensors could pick up. Professor, Maya said, raising her hand urgently, I think you should stop the demonstration. Professor Veltan paused, her compound eyes focusing on Maya with mild irritation. The safety protocols are well within acceptable parameters, Student Chen. Please do not interrupt with unnecessary concerns. The vegan student's crystal form flashed with amusement. Perhaps the human is frightened by forces beyond her primitive understanding, Crystal said mockingly. Maya felt every eye in the classroom turn toward her. The weight of their dismissive attention was familiar, but this time lives were at stake. The harmonic resonance is building toward a cascade failure, she insisted. The frequency readings are showing patterns that could destabilize the local gravitational matrix. Professor Veltan's expression grew cold. Young human, I have been teaching advanced physics for over 2 centuries. I think I understand gravitational mechanics better than a species that only discovered faster than light travel 15 years ago. Maya's heart pounded as she watched the readings continue to climb. In approximately 90 seconds, the resonance cascade would reach critical threshold. After that, the Academy's artificial gravity system would begin to fail in a cascading wave that would kill thousands of students and staff. She made a decision that would change everything. Standing up abruptly, Maya strode toward the front of the classroom. Professor, with respect, you need to shut down the generator immediately. Student Chen, return to your seat at once or face disciplinary action, Professor Veltan commanded. Her forearms continuing to adjust the controls with confident precision. Maya didn't stop. Instead, she pulled out her tablet and projected her readings onto the classroom's main display screen. The harmonic frequency patterns appeared as a complex wave diagram that pulsed with increasing intensity. Look at the resonance cascade building in the quantum substrate, Maya said urgently, pointing to specific data streams. Your safety protocols don't account for 11-dimensional harmonic interference. The generator is creating standing waves that are amplifying through the Academy's gravitational matrix. For a moment, Professor Veltan's confidence wavered. The readings Maya displayed were unlike anything in the standard safety manuals. Are these measurements? What instruments are you using? I modified my tablet sensors based on some theoretical work I did on chaotic systems, Maya explained quickly. Professor, we have less than 60 seconds before the cascade reaches critical threshold. The classroom fell silent except for the increasingly ominous hum of the gravity well generator. Even the arrogant vegan student had stopped flashing with amusement, its crystal form now pulsing with uncertain colors. Professor Veltan stared at the data readings, her compound eyes calculating rapidly. The patterns Maya showed were completely outside her experience, but the mathematical progression was undeniably building toward some kind of critical event. 30 seconds, Maya warned, watching the frequency spikes climb toward the threshold she had calculated. Professor Veltan's training as a scientist finally overcame her prejudice. Her forearms slammed down on the emergency shutdown controls, cutting power to the gravity well generator with a sharp, discordant whine. The silence that followed was deafening. Then slowly Maya's tablet showed the harmonic resonance beginning to decay. The dangerous frequency patterns gradually dissipating as the artificial gravitational field returned to normal parameters. Every student in the classroom stared at Maya with new eyes. The quiet human girl who couldn't solve basic physics problems had just prevented what could have been a catastrophic failure of the Academy's life support systems. Professor Veltan's compound eyes remained fixed on Maya's data display. Student Chen, she said quietly, I believe we need to have a very serious conversation about your theoretical work on chaotic systems. Maya nodded, already knowing that her carefully maintained anonymity was about to end. The first victim had almost fallen and she had prevented it. But in doing so, she had revealed abilities that would soon make her the most watched student in the galaxy. As the class dismissed in stunned silence, Maya gathered her things with steady hands. She had known this moment would come eventually. Now the real questions would begin, and she wasn't sure she was ready to answer them. Word spread through the Academy faster than light particles through a quantum tunnel. By evening, Maya found herself summoned to the office of Dean Thexara, the most powerful administrator in the Galactic Academy. The dean's office occupied the apex of the station's central spire, with transparent walls offering a panoramic view of the stars beyond. Dean Thexara belonged to the ancient ethereal race, beings of pure energy, who had long ago transcended physical form. She appeared as a shimmering column of silver light that pulsed with emotional resonance. When she spoke, her voice carried harmonics that touched the mind directly, bypassing the need for translation. Student Chen, the dean's voice resonated with curiosity and concern. Professor Veltan has filed a most unusual report regarding your intervention in today's demonstration. She claims you detected a potential catastrophic failure that our most advanced safety systems failed to identify. Maya sat in the chair across from the dean's energy form, her hands folded calmly in her lap. Yes, ma'am. The harmonic resonance patterns were building toward a cascade failure in the gravitational matrix. using what Professor Veltan describes as modified sensors based on chaotic systems theory. The dean continued. This is quite remarkable, considering that chaotic systems mathematics is considered one of the most advanced theoretical disciplines in the galaxy. Most species require centuries of evolution and technological development before they can even begin to comprehend such concepts. Maya nodded carefully. She had expected this conversation, but that didn't make it any easier. I've always been interested in complex mathematical relationships. Human chaos theory provides some useful tools for analyzing nonlinear systems. The dean's form pulsed with deeper silver light, indicating intense thought. Student Chen, I have reviewed your admission files. Your entrance examination scores were adequate but unremarkable. Your academic records from Earth show competence but no particular distinction. Yet today you demonstrated knowledge and intuition that surpasses most of our advanced graduate students. Maya remained silent, knowing that any explanation she could offer would only raise more questions. Dean Thexara moved closer, her energy form casting dancing shadows on the walls. I am going to ask you a direct question, and I hope you will answer honestly. Are you truly just a 17-year-old human student seeking education, or is there something else you wish to tell me? The moment stretched between them like a held breath. Maya had known this question would come eventually, but she had hoped to have more time to observe and understand the political dynamics at the academy before revealing her true purpose. I am 17 years old, Maya said finally, and I am here to learn. But you're right that my background is more complex than my admission files indicate. Continue. Maya took a deep breath. 3 years ago, Earth's deep space monitoring stations detected something unusual. Patterns in quantum fluctuations that suggested artificial manipulation of space-time on a massive scale. The patterns were subtle, hidden within what appeared to be natural cosmic background radiation, but they showed clear signs of intelligent design. Dean Thexara's form shifted to a deeper silver, indicating surprise. You're describing quantum archaeology techniques that are known to only a handful of the most advanced civilizations. How did your species detect such patterns? Because humans think differently, Maya replied. We don't have the advanced mathematical frameworks that most galactic species use, so we approach problems from unexpected angles. Our scientists used pattern recognition algorithms originally developed for financial markets and weather prediction. When they applied these tools to cosmic background radiation, they found something remarkable. Which was? Maya pulled out her tablet and projected a complex data visualization into the air between them. The display showed quantum fluctuation patterns over a 3-year period, with certain frequencies highlighted in red. Someone has been using artificial gravity wells to send messages across galactic distances, Maya explained. The gravitational waves create subtle disruptions in the quantum foam that can be detected by anyone who knows what to look for. But the communication method is so advanced that most species would dismiss the patterns as natural phenomena. Dean Thexara studied the data with growing intensity. These patterns, they do appear to show intentional modulation. But who would have both the technology and the need to communicate in such a fashion? That's what Earth's government sent me here to find out, Maya said quietly. The messages are being transmitted from somewhere within this sector of the galaxy, and the Galactic Academy represents the largest concentration of advanced technology and scientific knowledge in the region. The dean's form pulsed with rapid silver flashes, indicating rapid processing of new information. You're suggesting that someone at this academy is involved in this quantum communication network? I'm not suggesting anything yet, Maya replied carefully. I'm here to observe, learn, and gather data. Earth scientists believe that whoever is sending these messages has technology far beyond anything publicly known in the galactic community. The energy requirements alone would be staggering. And today's incident with the gravity well generator? Maya hesitated, then decided to continue with her honesty. I've been monitoring the Academy's gravitational system since I arrived. The harmonic patterns I detected today weren't just a potential safety hazard. They showed the same mathematical signature as the quantum communication patterns we detected from Earth. Dean Thexara's energy form went completely still. You're saying that someone used today's demonstration as a cover to send a message? I'm saying the patterns are consistent with that possibility, Maya corrected. But I need more data to be certain. The dean moved to the transparent wall, her form casting rippling light across the starfield beyond. Student Chen, What you're describing has profound implications for galactic security. If there truly is a covert communication network operating at this level of sophistication, it suggests the existence of technology that could destabilize the balance of power among the major civilizations. That's why Earth decided to investigate, Maya agreed. We may be newcomers to the galactic community, but we have a vested interest in understanding the true nature of the political and technological landscape we're entering. Dean Thexara turned back toward Maya, her form now pulsing with complex patterns of silver and gold light. I am faced with a difficult decision, Student Chen. Your revelations require investigation, but they also place you in considerable danger. If your suspicions are correct, then someone at this academy possesses technology that could be used for purposes far beyond academic research. Maya nodded grimly. I understand the risks, Dean, but I also understand that the first victim almost fell today, and there will be others if we don't uncover the truth. The Dean's form brightened with what Maya interpreted as resolve. Very well. You will continue your studies, but with additional resources and protection. I am assigning you to work directly with Professor Zektar on advanced theoretical research. This will give you access to the Academy's most sensitive scientific data and equipment. Thank you. Dean, do not thank me yet, Student Chen. If your suspicions prove correct, you may soon find yourself at the center of a conflict that could reshape the galaxy. The question is whether a 17-year-old human is truly prepared for such responsibility. Maya met the Dean's energy form with steady eyes. I guess we'll find out together. As she left the Dean's office, Maya felt the weight of what she had set in motion. The game had changed, and she was no longer just an observer. The real investigation was about to begin, and she suspected the next victim wouldn't be saved by a simple warning. Professor Zektar's private laboratory occupied an entire section of the Academy's research wing, a vast space filled with experimental equipment that hummed with barely contained energy. When Maya arrived for her first day of advanced research, she found the 8-tentacled professor examining a holographic display of quantum field equations that stretched from floor to ceiling. Ah, Student Chen, Professor Zektar said without turning around, 4 of his tentacles continuing to manipulate the floating equations while others gestured her forward. Dean Thexara has informed me of your unique qualifications. She has asked me to provide you with access to our most advanced theoretical research. Maya approached carefully, her eyes taking in the sophisticated equipment that surrounded them. Quantum field generators, gravitational wave detectors, and what appeared to be a small-scale spacetime. Manipulation chamber filled the laboratory with the quiet hum of advanced technology. She also mentioned that you have concerns about certain patterns in our gravitational systems. Professor Zektar continued, finally turning to face her with his large, dark eyes. I must admit, your detection of the harmonic cascade in Professor Veltan's class was quite remarkable. Such sensitivity typically requires decades of advanced training. I had good teachers, Maya said diplomatically, not mentioning that those teachers included some of Earth's most brilliant quantum physicists. Working in complete secrecy, Professor Zektar's tentacles writhed in what Maya had learned was his species' equivalent of amusement. Indeed. Well, let us see if your chaotic systems theory can be applied to some of our current research challenges. He gestured toward a complex apparatus in the center of the laboratory. We have been working on improved efficiency for fold space calculations. The current models require enormous energy expenditures, making long-distance space travel prohibitively expensive for most civilizations. Maya examined the equipment with growing interest. The setup was designed to create small-scale fold space distortions for measurement and analysis. But as she studied the quantum field generators, she noticed something that made her pulse quicken. Professor, these field generators are operating on the same frequency bands I detected during the gravity well incident, she said carefully. Professor Zektar's tentacles went very still. I beg your pardon? Maya pulled out her modified tablet and began scanning the equipment. The readings confirmed her suspicions. The quantum resonance patterns are nearly identical. This equipment could be used to generate the same harmonic signatures I detected in the Academy's gravitational matrix. That is an interesting observation, Professor Zektar said slowly. However, I can assure you that our research here is purely theoretical. We are seeking to improve the mathematical models for fold space travel. Nothing more. Maya nodded but continued her scans. Something about Professor Zektar's reaction seemed off. His tentacles were displaying subtle color changes that her research on Altarian psychology suggested indicated stress or deception. Of course, Professor. I was just noting the similarity in the quantum signatures. It's fascinating how the same mathematical principles can appear in seemingly unrelated applications. Professor Zektar relaxed slightly. Yes, well, quantum mechanics does tend to follow universal principles. Now let me show you the current fold space equations we have been developing. For the next 2 hours, Professor Zektar walked Maya through the theoretical framework of their research. The mathematics were indeed elegant, showing potential improvements in energy efficiency that could revolutionize galactic travel. But Maya noticed something else in the equations: hidden patterns that suggested applications far beyond mere transportation. During a break, while Professor Zektar was occupied with other equipment, Maya discreetly activated her tablet's deep scan mode. The modified sensors she had built using human chaos theory principles could detect quantum patterns that conventional instruments missed. What she found made her blood run cold. The laboratory's equipment wasn't just researching fold space travel. Hidden beneath the legitimate research was a sophisticated quantum communication array capable of sending messages across vast distances using gravitational wave modulation. The same technology that Earth's scientists had detected in the cosmic background radiation. But that wasn't the worst part. The communication log showed that messages had been sent regularly over the past 3 months, all encoded in the same quantum signature patterns. And the last message had been transmitted yesterday, just hours after her meeting with Dean Thexara. Maya forced herself to remain calm as Professor Zektar returned. The equations are quite impressive, Professor. The potential applications seem almost limitless. Thank you. Student Chen. I am pleased that you appreciate the sophistication of our work. Professor Zektar's tentacles moved in complex patterns as he spoke, but Maya noticed that his color patterns were now showing signs of satisfaction, mixed with something that might have been anticipation. I was wondering, Maya said carefully, have you shared this research with other institutions? The implications for galactic civilization could be profound. Oh, we maintain correspondence with various research centers throughout the galaxy, Professor Zektar replied casually. Scientific collaboration is essential for advancing knowledge, wouldn't you agree? Maya's tablet, still running passive scans, detected a subtle increase in quantum field activity from the communication array. Someone was preparing to send another message, and Maya suspected she knew what that message would contain. Professor, I hate to cut our session short, but I just remembered I have an appointment with my academic advisor, Maya said, gathering her things with practiced calm. Of course, Student Chen, we will continue tomorrow. I look forward to learning more about your unique insights into chaotic systems theory. Maya left the laboratory with measured steps, but her mind was racing. Professor Zektar was part of the covert communication network, and he had just learned that a human student with unusual abilities was investigating quantum patterns at the Academy. That information would undoubtedly be transmitted to whoever was receiving his messages. As she walked through the Academy's corridors, Maya felt the weight of realization settling on her shoulders. She was no longer just investigating a mystery. She had become a target, and the next victim to fall would likely be herself. But she had also discovered something that Earth scientists had only theorized about. The quantum communication network wasn't just being used for information exchange. Based on the power signatures she had detected, it was capable of transmitting something far more dangerous than messages. It could transmit actual matter across galactic distances, creating a transportation network that bypassed all known detection methods. And if someone was building such a network in secret, their intentions were almost certainly not peaceful. Maya reached her dormitory room and immediately began preparing encrypted reports for transmission to Earth. But even as she worked, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was already too late. The game had moved beyond investigation into something much more dangerous. The next victim was about to fall, and this time, Maya might not be able to prevent it. Maya's encrypted transmission to Earth never made it past the Academy's communication array. Her modified tablet detected the signal being intercepted and rerouted through systems she couldn't identify. Within minutes of attempting to send her report, every piece of technology in her dormitory room began malfunctioning simultaneously. Her tablet screen flickered and died. The room's environmental controls started cycling randomly between scorching heat and freezing cold. The lights pulsed in patterns that made her eyes water. Even her simple digital clock began displaying impossible times, counting backward and forward in chaotic sequences. Maya grabbed her emergency kit and headed for the door, but the electronic lock had engaged automatically. She was trapped in a room that was rapidly becoming uninhabitable, surrounded by technology that had turned hostile with surgical precision. The attack was too sophisticated to be random. Someone with intimate knowledge of the Academy's systems was systematically isolating her, cutting off her communications and preparing to make her disappearance look like an unfortunate accident. Maya realized with cold clarity that she had become the next victim, but her attackers had made one crucial mistake. They had assumed she was dependent on the Academy's technology. Maya pulled a small device from her emergency kit that looked like an ordinary multi-tool. In reality, it was a quantum field disruptor based on principles that Earth scientists had developed independently of galactic technology. The device operated on chaotic frequencies that were virtually impossible to predict or counter. She activated the disruptor and aimed it at the door's electronic lock. The chaotic quantum field generated by the device interfered with the lock's molecular structure, causing it to phase shift briefly into an unstable state. The door swung open with a soft click. Maya stepped into the corridor to find the Academy in chaos. Emergency lights flashed throughout the station as multiple systems failed simultaneously. Students and faculty were evacuating their quarters, many looking confused and frightened as their personal technology malfunctioned around them. But Maya noticed something that others missed. The system failures weren't random. They followed specific patterns that created clear corridors leading toward the outer sections of the station. Someone was herding the Academy's population away from the central research areas. She fought against the flow of evacuating beings, using her small size to slip through gaps in the crowd. Her destination was Professor Zektar's laboratory. If the communication network was as sophisticated as she suspected, the current crisis was likely cover for a major transmission event. The research wing was nearly deserted when Maya arrived. Emergency lighting cast eerie shadows across the corridors, and the usual hum of advanced equipment had been replaced by an ominous silence. She made her way to Professor Zektar's laboratory, using her quantum disruptor to bypass the security systems that should have kept her out. Inside the laboratory, she found Professor Zektar working frantically at the quantum communication array. The equipment was operating at maximum capacity, sending streams of data through gravitational wave pulses that would travel faster than light across the galaxy. But he wasn't alone. 3 other figures worked alongside him, beings Maya didn't recognize from any of the Academy's public faculty. They moved with military precision, their equipment and clothing suggesting they were not academics but something far more dangerous. Maya activated her tablet's passive scanning mode, hoping to gather intelligence about what was being transmitted. The quantum signatures were unlike anything she had seen before. This wasn't just communication or even matter transportation. The data streams showed patterns consistent with consciousness transfer, the theoretical process of transmitting sentient minds across space. One of the unknown figures noticed her presence first. "We have an observer," it announced in a voice that carried no emotion. Professor Zektar turned, his tentacles writhing with agitation when he saw Maya. "Student Chen, I had hoped you would be safely evacuated with the others. Professor, what are you doing?" Maya asked, though she was beginning to understand the scope of what she had discovered. "Something that your primitive species cannot possibly comprehend," one of the other figures replied. It appeared to be humanoid, but moved with unnatural fluidity that suggested advanced cybernetic enhancement. "We are preparing this galaxy for a necessary transformation." Maya's tablet detected massive energy buildups in the quantum field generators. Whatever they were transmitting was reaching critical transfer protocols. "You're bringing something here, aren't you? Something that requires consciousness transfer technology." Professor Zektar's tentacles shifted to colors Maya had never seen before, indicating emotions that had no equivalent in any species she knew. "The architects have slept in the void between galaxies for millions of years, Student Chen. But the time has come for them to reclaim what was always theirs." The implications hit Maya like a physical blow. The quantum communication network wasn't being used by any known galactic civilization, It was being used to wake something ancient and powerful, something that had been waiting in the darkness between stars for the galaxy to develop sufficient technology to facilitate their return. The Academy's gravitational systems, Maya said, understanding flooding through her. You've been using the station as a massive receiver array. All those minor fluctuations weren't malfunctions. You were tuning the entire station to serve as a landing platform. Very perceptive for a primitive, the cybernetic figure acknowledged. The Galactic Academy represents the perfect convergence of advanced technology and diverse biological specimens. The architects will find it quite useful for their initial assessment of current galactic civilization. Maya's blood ran cold as she realized what was about to happen. The Academy's 8,000 students and faculty weren't just witnesses to this event. They were intended to be test subjects for beings whose technology was so advanced that they could treat entire civilizations as laboratory experiments. The quantum field generators reached critical resonance, and space itself began to ripple around the communication array. Something vast and alien was responding to the transmission, reaching across the void with powers that defied every known law of physics. Maya made a decision that would define the rest of her life. She pulled out her quantum disruptor and set it to maximum chaotic interference. If she could destabilize the resonance field at the critical moment, she might be able to prevent the architects from completing their transfer. But she would need to get much closer to the array, and the three figures had noticed her movements. They began advancing toward her with predatory grace, their enhanced forms moving far faster than any natural being could manage. Maya ran toward the quantum communication array, dodging between pieces of equipment as energy beams sizzled past her head. Behind her, she could hear Professor Zektar shouting instructions to his companions, his voice filled with desperate urgency. The fate of the galaxy was about to be decided in a laboratory that nobody had paid attention to, by a human student that nobody had taken seriously. Maya Chen was about to discover just how far she was, willing to go to protect 8,000 innocent beings from creatures that viewed entire civilizations as nothing more than interesting specimens. The real battle was about to begin. Maya dove behind a quantum field generator as another energy beam scorched the air where she had been standing. The weapon's discharge created ripples in local spacetime that made her ears ring and her vision blur. These weren't just enhanced beings hunting her. They were using technology that could literally tear holes in reality. The communication array was only 20 meters away, but it might as well have been on the other side of the galaxy. Between Maya and her target stood three figures whose movements defied physics and whose weapons could unmake matter at the molecular level. But Maya had advantages they didn't expect. Human chaos theory wasn't just mathematics. It was a completely different way of thinking about complex systems. While her attackers moved with mechanical precision, Maya embraced unpredictability. She activated her quantum disruptor and threw it across the laboratory in a high arc. The device's chaotic field emissions immediately began interfering with the sophisticated targeting systems her attackers were using. Their next energy barrage went wide, striking laboratory equipment instead of Maya's position. Using the distraction, Maya sprinted toward the communication array along an indirect path that took her between multiple pieces of equipment. Her movements were erratic and seemingly random, but they followed chaos mathematics that made her trajectory impossible to predict. One of the cybernetic figures leaped across the laboratory with inhuman speed, landing directly in front of Maya with weapons charging. But Maya had anticipated this move using pattern recognition algorithms she had learned from studying Earth's financial markets. She slid under the being's stance and continued toward the array. "Stop her," Professor Zektar shouted, his tentacles flashing with colors that indicated extreme agitation. "The transfer window is closing. If the resonance field fails now, we won't get another chance for centuries." Maya reached the communication array and immediately began connecting her modified tablet to the control systems. Her chaotic interference programs were designed to introduce random fluctuations into any ordered system, creating cascade failures that would spread throughout connected networks. But as she worked, she felt something pressing against the edges of her consciousness. A vast intelligence was reaching through the quantum transmission, probing the minds of everyone in the laboratory. The architects were already here in a limited sense. Their consciousness transmitted across galactic distances through technology that reduced space and time to mere inconveniences. The mental contact was unlike anything Maya had ever experienced. The architect mind was ancient beyond comprehension, with memories that stretched back to when the galaxy was young and uninhabited. But there was also something else in that vast consciousness, a cold, analytical interest in the biological specimens it was about to encounter. Maya saw flashes of images from the architect's perspective. The galaxy's various civilizations weren't seen as fellow intelligences worthy of respect. They were experimental subjects, their technologies and biological characteristics catalogued for future study. The architects had done this before in other galaxies, leaving behind empty stars when their research was complete. The revelation strengthened Maya's resolve. She worked faster, her fingers flying across her tablet's interface as she uploaded chaos algorithms directly into the communication array's control systems. The quantum field generators began fluctuating wildly as random interference spread through their resonance patterns. One of the cybernetic figures reached her position, its weapon aimed directly at Maya's head. But before it could fire, the laboratory's emergency systems finally responded to the cascade failures Maya had initiated. Blast doors slammed shut, emergency force fields activated, and every piece of equipment in the laboratory began cycling through random operational modes. The cybernetic being's weapon discharged into an emergency force field, creating a feedback loop that overloaded its enhanced systems. The figure collapsed as its cybernetic components fried from the chaotic energy fluctuations Maya's programs had introduced. Professor Zektar tried to reach the manual controls for the communication array, but his tentacles couldn't maintain contact with interfaces that were randomly shifting between different operational frequencies. "The field matrix is destabilizing," he shouted. "We're losing resonance coherence." Maya could feel the vast architect consciousness withdrawing as the quantum transmission became increasingly unreliable, but she also sensed its anger, a cold fury that promised terrible retribution for this interference. The architects had been denied their prize, but they had learned something valuable about the galaxy's current inhabitants. They had learned that at least one species was capable of resisting their technology. The communication array finally overloaded completely, its quantum field generators exploding in a cascade of released energy. The laboratory filled with brilliant light as spacetime itself briefly lost coherence, creating localized distortions that made reality flicker like a broken hologram. When the energy discharges faded, Maya found herself alone among the wreckage. Professor Zektar and his remaining companions had vanished, either destroyed by the quantum backlash or transported elsewhere by emergency protocols she couldn't detect. But the victory felt hollow. Maya knew she had only delayed the inevitable. The architects were now aware that the galaxy contained species capable of interfering with their plans. They would return, better prepared and with countermeasures for the chaotic interference techniques she had used. Emergency teams finally reached the laboratory, their equipment scanning for survivors and radiation hazards. Dean Thexera materialized as a column of brilliant silver light, her energy form pulsing with concern and confusion. "Student Chen, what happened here?" the dean asked, her harmonics carrying undertones of barely controlled fear. Maya looked around at the devastated laboratory, then at the readings on her tablet that showed quantum signatures unlike anything in galactic scientific literature. "We were invaded, Dean, not by any civilization we know, but by something much older and more dangerous. The system failures throughout the Academy were part of a plan to use the entire station as a receiving array for consciousness transfer technology," Maya explained. "Professor Zektar and unknown accomplices were working with beings called the Architects, ancient entities that treat entire galaxies as experimental laboratories." Dean Thexara's energy form flickered with rapid processing patterns. "You're saying that the Academy was the target of an invasion by beings from outside our galaxy?" "I'm saying we just prevented the first phase of a very long-term research project," Maya corrected. "The architects view galactic civilizations as test subjects. They've done this before in other galaxies, and they'll be back." The dean's form brightened with what Maya interpreted as resolve. "Then we must prepare. The Galactic Council must be informed immediately." Maya nodded, but she was already thinking several steps ahead. The architects had technology that made the galaxy's most advanced civilizations look primitive by comparison. Conventional preparations would be useless against beings who could manipulate spacetime itself. But Maya had discovered something important during her brief mental contact with the architect consciousness. For all their technological superiority, the architects thought in highly ordered, predictable patterns. They had never encountered a species that embraced chaos as a fundamental principle. Humanity's chaotic approach to problem-solving wasn't just different from galactic norms. It was completely alien to beings who had spent millions of years perfecting ordered, systematic methods of conquest and study. That difference might be the galaxy's only hope of survival. As emergency teams continued their work around her, Maya began planning for a war that most beings couldn't even imagine. The architects would return, but next time, they would face not just one human with a quantum disruptor, but an entire species that specialized in turning chaos into victory. The real battle for the galaxy was about to begin, and nobody would pay attention to humanity until it was far too late for the architects to adapt. 6 months after the incident at the Galactic Academy, Maya Chen stood before the assembled representatives of 47 civilizations in the Grand Council chamber on Kepler 442b. The massive amphitheater buzzed with translation harmonics as beings from across the galaxy debated humanity's proposal for defending against the architect threat. The debate had been raging for 3 standard days, with most species expressing skepticism about the human approach to galactic defense. Maya listened patiently as Ambassador Thexnell of the Vegan Collective voiced the concerns that many shared. The human proposal is fundamentally flawed, Ambassador Thexnell declared, its crystalline form pulsing with dismissive colors. They suggest abandoning our proven defensive technologies in favor of chaotic, unpredictable systems. Such an approach contradicts millions of years of military science. Maya rose from her position in the human delegation, her simple civilian clothing contrasting sharply with the elaborate diplomatic regalia worn by other species representatives. At 18, she was the youngest being ever to address the Galactic Council, but her experience with the architects had earned her a voice in humanity's delegation. "Honored Ambassador," Maya began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's acoustic systems, "you speak of millions of years of military science. But that military science was developed to fight enemies who think like you do. The architects don't follow your logical patterns of warfare." She activated a holographic display that showed the quantum signatures her team had detected from deep space over the past 6 months. "They're coming back. Our long-range sensors have detected systematic preparation activities in 17 different sectors. The architects are building infrastructure for a full-scale invasion, using technology that makes our most advanced weapons look like stone tools." Council leader Zareth, an ancient ethereal whose energy form commanded respect from all species, spoke with harmonics that touched every mind in the chamber. "Student Chen, we acknowledge your unique insights into the architect threat, but your species proposes replacing our coordinated defense grids with what you call chaotic interference networks. Explain how random systems can be more effective than organized military response." Maya had been preparing for this question for months, because the architects' greatest strength is also their greatest weakness. They think in perfect, predictable patterns. Every invasion they've conducted across multiple galaxies has followed the same systematic approach: infiltrate, analyze, catalog, and harvest. She changed the holographic display to show tactical simulations that human military analysts had developed. "When they arrive, they'll expect us to respond with conventional tactics. Coordinated fleets, organized battle lines, logical defensive strategies. They have countermeasures for all of those approaches." "And your alternative?" asked Ambassador Krystal, the vegan student who had once mocked Maya's calculations. "We don't fight them," Maya said simply. "We confuse them." A ripple of confused harmonics swept through the chamber. Several ambassadors began speaking at once, their translation systems creating a cacophony of skeptical questions. Maya waited for silence, then continued. "Earth has spent 6 months developing what we call the Chaos Defense Protocol. Instead of trying to match the architect's technology, we embrace unpredictability at every level. Random fleet movements, illogical tactical decisions, technologies that operate on chaotic principles rather than ordered ones." She activated a new display showing test results from human military exercises. "When our pilots abandoned traditional combat formations in favor of chaos mathematics, their effectiveness against simulated architect technology increased by 340%. When our engineers introduced random fluctuations into our weapon systems, they became impossible to counter using predictive algorithms." Council leader Zareth's energy form, pulsed with interested harmonics. You're suggesting that disorganization is more effective than organization? I'm suggesting that apparent disorganization can mask very sophisticated strategies, Maya corrected. Human chaos theory isn't about being random. It's about finding patterns within randomness, and using those patterns in ways that linear thinking can't predict or counter. Ambassador Thexnell's crystal form flashed with agitation. This is madness. You're asking 47 civilizations to abandon proven military doctrines in favor of human theories that have never been tested in actual combat. Actually, they have been tested, Maya replied, just not in the way you might expect. She activated her personal tablet and projected new data into the chamber. 2 months ago, Architect scout ships began probing our outer colonies. Small reconnaissance missions designed to test our defensive responses. Every colony that used conventional defense protocols was completely analyzed and cataloged by the scouts. They mapped our weapons, our ship designs, our tactical doctrines. The chamber fell silent as representatives realized the implications. But 3 colonies were equipped with prototype chaos defense systems, Maya continued. Random shield fluctuations, unpredictable weapon discharge patterns, ships that moved according to chaos mathematics rather than tactical logic. The Architect scouts couldn't complete their analysis. They retreated after gathering minimal data. She paused to let that information settle. The Architects are accustomed to studying their enemies systematically. When faced with systems they can't predict or categorize, they become uncertain, and uncertainty is something they've never had to deal with before. Ambassador Velneth of the Centaurian Republic, one of the galaxy's most militaristic species, leaned forward with interest. You're saying that unpredictability itself can be weaponized? I'm saying that humans have been weaponizing unpredictability for our entire evolutionary history, Maya replied. We're the species that survived by being too chaotic for predators to anticipate. We've turned adaptability and randomness into our greatest strengths. She gestured toward the human delegation, which included military advisors, chaos mathematicians, and engineers who had spent months developing technologies that operated on principles most galactic civilizations considered impossible. The Chaos Defense Protocol isn't just about random tactics. It's about creating a galaxy-wide network of unpredictable responses that make systematic conquest impossible. Every ship, every colony, every defensive installation operating according to different chaos algorithms, all coordinated through patterns that even we can't fully predict. Council Leader Zareth's energy form brightened with what Maya had learned to recognize as deep thought. And if this approach fails? Maya met the leader's energy form with steady eyes. Then we fall back to conventional tactics and fight a war we can't win. But if it succeeds, we don't just defeat the Architects. We show them that this galaxy contains something they've never encountered before. A civilization that thrives on chaos instead of being destroyed by it. The chamber buzzed with heated discussion as representatives conferred with their home governments. Maya could see the conflict in their harmonics and energy patterns. Everything about the human proposal went against millions of years of military tradition, but they were facing an enemy that had conquered those traditions repeatedly across multiple galaxies. Finally, Council Leader Zareth called for order. The Galactic Council will vote on the human proposal. All in favor of implementing the Chaos Defense Protocol? Maya held her breath as the voting harmonics echoed through the chamber. Species after species added their voices to the count, some confident, others reluctant, all of them betting the future of galactic civilization on the chaotic insights of a species that nobody had paid attention to until the victims began to fall. When the final tally was announced, the Chaos Defense Protocol had passed by a margin of 3 votes. Maya Chen, the human student who couldn't solve basic physics problems, had just convinced 47 galactic civilizations to abandon millions of years of military doctrine in favor of organized chaos. The Architects were coming, but they would find a galaxy that refused to behave according to any pattern they could understand. And in that refusal, humanity had planted the seeds of something unprecedented in the cosmic history of conquest. Hope. The real war was about to begin, and for the first time in millions of years, an ancient enemy would face something they had never encountered. A universe that embraced chaos as the ultimate weapon of survival.